We're here. What's up, Adam?
Oh man, we did it.
We did
We
it.
figured out video.
We made it work. We made it work.
I apologize about having to cancel on you because I forgot the date of our largest event.
Hey
I
man,
think that was Midwest
you've
Festival.
yeah you've
but
added to your calendar, so it happens.
yeah, it's been a busy one. It's been a busy one.
Um,
I also apologize about all my sunburns. Standing outside in the sun too much.
yeah. Well, you're out there during all of the events, managing and everything, right?
And
So
and also doing construction stuff too, running two companies. So
yeah,
but
yeah. So I hear about all that.
doing
So
that too.
so first of all, I would love you to share a bit about your background. This is a few things. You obviously have your family, you run GridLife, and do so many other things. So tell us a story of sort of how you came to be where you're at right now, and a little bit about
Uh, yeah,
all.
so I run like the motorsports half of our sanctioning body, which wasn't supposed to be a sanctioning body, a racing sanctioning body, GridLife. Um, and we just discovered like 20 some years ago that you could rent a racetrack if you gave them money. So we did, and then we sort of figured out a lot of things along the way. And since probably about 27 years, I've also done construction, manage a small company. My dad sort of is retired, so we keep it small. We're trying to kill it so I can work at GridLife, but it never dies. So I kind of blend the two. But we GridLife came about because my co-founder Chris, he got a little bit into the music scene. He was helping produce some kind of some EDM stuff. Got friends with a bunch of EDM artists in Chicago. Was creative directing some music videos, things like that. And we had friends in like the car culture aspects of like car show, autocross. I was deep into doing racetrack stuff like SCCA, NASA, instructing all the East Coast and the Midwest just to get like cheap track time because I was struggling business owner, wanted to get track as much as I could. So trailered my car all around the country, basically like working for track time. Then I started dabbling in
will
racing.
work for track time.
Yeah, seriously, like we'll work for food. The food is, can I take a green flag and a checker a few times a day? Yeah, so we're, he was in the ad agency world, was totally burned out on it, wanted to like build his next thing. And he was like big time in the ad agency world, like Harley Davidson, North Face, like global creative director for North Face or whatever his title was at the time.
Sure.
But wanted to get out of that, wanted to start his own thing. So we did our first 2014, basically real ragtag, bootstrappy. Like my pickup truck was loaded to the top of the bed was loaded. We did sell a bunch of T-shirts. You're wearing one of our T-shirts.
That's
I appreciate
right.
it. I'm representing our buddies at Valvoline right now. So, yeah, slowly built like the rule sets in our original series was just a time trial series with HPDE, which is practice stuff at every event, and then introduced a wheel-to-wheel rule set, which has ballooned in success. Our GridLife Touring Cup, which is single class of wheel-to-wheel. And yeah, you just keep building on it every year.
Yeah.
We started spreading, in the Midwest. He did like 4 events. Then we went down to Road Atlanta, which I think you came to 2 Road Atlantas or 1.
I came to 3 or 4, I think, before I got
we did
moved.
4 of them.
Yeah.
And then now we do the South Festival at CMP the last couple of years. But yeah, just growing and growing. Did our first event at Laguna Seca last year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
3rd event this year at Lime Rock. Lime Rock is a gorgeous racetrack if you ever get out there in Connecticut. So yeah, it's just turned into a national series. We've got employees now. We have a semi trailer that tows our crap around. But yeah, every event's kind of different, but they're busy. So
you've all grown up, and also the event at NOLA, the sort of holdover. That interim event, right? Yeah, I was there too.
That one was like it was an accident South event because the SEMA show, which for those who aren't in the motor, the SEMA show is like the biggest show in Las Vegas, like the big trade show. We were all going to go do SEMA show, but it was COVID year 2020, and I've been talking to the racetrack in New Orleans, talking to the manager for a couple of years, and he really wanted us to get down to do an event. And when SEMA was canceled, we had like an idea of well, if SEMA is, everybody's going to be bored for a weekend. Let's like throw a pretty big event that weekend. If it happens, it's all outdoors. By that time, everybody was a little bit less afraid if you're out in the sunlight.
Right.
And like, I think the day after SEMA announced that it's canceled, we announced that we were doing it. Ended up being a pretty good event. And the manager changed after that year. Work with the manager on the ticketing side of our company now. He developed his own ticketing company and stuff. The same guy, but yeah, agreement as far as track prices and dates that work. Dates that work are really hard when you're trying to do a national series. You're trying to not be somewhere every weekend. You got to have a weekend or 2 weekends off in order to like regroup and move assets, and just because a lot of our drivers follow us around the country. So dates are really hard. Everybody should come to my racetrack in my neck of the woods, and it's super hard because the tracks are in so much demand now. But project starting kind of about now is when we start planning the next season. So we're really happy with this year's season, though. We've got about a 2-week spread in between all of our big stuff, so everybody can kind of breathe a little bit. And it's been working really good. So
that's awesome. For those who might not be familiar, just give a general overview of GridLife and what it started as and what it's become and how it's unique in the motorsports world, because it is absolutely unique.
It's pretty unique.
Yeah,
it's pretty unique. It's weird. Some of it is on purpose. Like we always wanted to create. Like our main goal is to create the event that we want to go to every time. Like we always want to create an event that like we would want to be at. So we try to keep that in mind as far as all the attendees, whether you're driving, whether you're spectating. We might not always do a perfect event, but we always really put a lot of effort into like the experience of everybody that's participating or attending. A lot of thought into it. Even when it comes down to like bathroom placement, like we argue about like, should the bathrooms be in a straight line? Should they be in a curve, or like where should the hand washing stations go? Like there's a lot of thought, especially with our festival team, Charlie, Trisha, and gang, in like just the customer experience and like the weekend journey throughout the event for just attendees. Even now, a lot of people are camping, so we're like building a campground in the middle of sometimes ant infested Carolina Motorsports Park. Or what if there's a torrential downpour? Who's going to flood? We can't put people there. Like studying things throughout the year at individual racetracks. Like I know where the ground gets wet at Gingerman Raceway in like more than 2 inches of rain. I know where I can't go, so don't put things there. You got to think of like all these weird little things that you'd never think about if you're just renting a racetrack for a track day. But yeah, so build the event that we want to. It started out as just like, oh, let's try this. And then it was pretty rad. We didn't make any money. I think we lost a lot of money. It was all credit card revolving debt at the time. And then the next year it was pretty good. And the year after that, it was even better. Bigger music acts. Started from like YouTube world, like in 2015, 2016, some of the early YouTubers in automotive world. Just like had some momentum because it's an amateur event that features all the different kinds of disciplines, but also is very spectator and campground and party focused. Like it's a accidental party at a racetrack.
Sure.
And we've just been building the on-track elements and building the competitiveness of all of our time attack classes and focus now in the wheel-to-wheel series. We've got the Rush SR series now, which is like a sports racer, a spec sports. Our company that builds them in Texas. We've got GridLife Touring Cup, which at several events is now A main and B main, like multiple class field or multiple fields in the same class because there's so much participation, so much demand for it. But we've got drift at a lot of the festivals, which is a big spectator, a big spectator crowd pleaser thing. But keep growing the motorsport series. And everybody likes to watch drift, especially at like tracks that have never done it. Like we were the first ones to bring drift to Watkins Glen, to Lime Rock, to Laguna Seca. We were only the second people to drift Mid-Ohio last year. Where else? We were the first to drift the full track at Road Atlanta, first to drift full track at Gingerman, first to drift at Autobahn. Like just bringing all these elements of motorsports together, because drift used to be like the snowboarders versus the skiers. It was like, comparison. Those dirty drifters, leave them out. They drifters. Send them to the oval track, but they're really like they're the same or more passionate auto enthusiasts. Like as far as grip versus drift.
Yeah,
But
I do
yeah,
love that.
just
I do
trying
love the
trying to
grip
put the
versus
community
drift
together. So,
comparison there.
yeah,
That's always fun. And I
yeah,
always tell
yeah. The
people,
snowboarders versus skiers.
yeah, I do love that. I
Yeah,
always
especially
tell
if you were skiing in the '90s, you remember how dirty those snowboarders were.
yeah. I always tell people
Right.
when it comes to grid life, what I love about it, the culture and the people that are there are just awesome. But there's also this dynamic of so many aspects in motorsports in one place. And there's a real spectator problem, I would say, outside of grid life. Like there's not many people showing up to other track events
Yeah,
outside of professional, right?
if you're outside of professional stuff, and even some professional stuff, it's like they're not always full. Maybe there's nobody
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
With some of the pro road race series, especially.
Yeah. So
So
getting people to the track to really enjoy and understand racing is awesome. And the amount of people, we were talking about earlier, there's thousands of people that showed up to the South Carolina event last year. How many people did you have this year?
right. I think we nearly doubled the attendance overall throughout the weekend. It was a little bit longer. It was more spectator focused. I don't even remember what the stats were overall, but I think we had about 7 or 8,000 people on
Oh
site.
my
Which
gosh.
for
That's
anybody,
awesome.
there's not room for 7,000 people. Like it's just not that big. But yeah, a lot of drivers, huge. Like the paddock is full, and then you bring all these people that just wander in and stand up against the fences and just watch us do our thing, and they have the
Yeah.
best weekend, which is great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. They're camping and sleeping bags and like, on a hill and grass, like to do
yeah,
anything just to be
just
there. It's,
they're like literally making their own campsites in the woods.
yeah,
But
it's really a unique experience. What are
you got to
some,
come up to Midwest Festival, by the way.
I know
That's
Grant's wants me
our
to come
the
up.
OG wild one.
Yeah.
If you like CMP, Road Atlanta, the ones you've been to, I mean that ain't nothing, man. We sold out the last 2 years, and we mowed down a lot more field that had been neglected forever. So I think we put another 2,000 people at Midwest Festival as well too,
Yeah.
and the campsites and change things around, more day parking. It was just a great event this year. Really, really
Yeah.
good event. So
Yeah. So
20,000 people throughout the weekend. So
wow. Yeah, so aside from like the series that you have throughout the year, these festivals, I always explain to people it's like Forza Horizon in real life, like massive music
that's what everybody
festival.
says. Yeah, I've
People
never played that game. I've never played it.
just hilarious.
Yep, never played it before.
But it's an amazing weekend with a lot of fun things, outside of just the racing. There's cool people there. There's, like you say, there's music talent that's there. There are some cool drivers that show up. They're doing some unique things too. So, what are some of the trends you're seeing in the motorsports events industry? Like as you've grown in what you're doing, and what are you seeing sort of for the future for yourselves and just in general in the space?
I think like my main thought and like kind of my North Star, if we're like looking like personally focused on, is the class rules in the motorsports side, like making the racing amazing in all the classes, like parity, bring in a car that will have a place to race, but also not have 50 classes. We've got 6 and 7 if you count Super Unlimited, I think, for a wheel to wheel and one for the sports race cars at a bunch of events. But like focusing on really good racing, so we're putting out a really good product, whether you're the driver or you're somebody watching. But really making it like relatable has for somebody who just is car curious. They came to GridLife Midwest or GridLife event because they've seen it on the internet. It's in their Instagram. It's whatever. So they want to see it. But like when you go to many club race events, you don't know who's winning any given race because there might be 6 classes racing each other. But making it relatable for those people, they know who's winning because everybody's racing each other. Or we're even down to like the PA feed at events to where spectators can hear the announcing in the live stream. That's a huge pain in the butt to do, but like the spectators will have a much better time if they can hear Kyle and Greg and whoever's announcing talk about the race, talk about the time attack or whatever. And I think that gets really forgotten, like because members and like the family of the drivers might have some knowledge of what's happening out there, but like nobody's going to just pull off the street to any given track event or race weekend for an amateur race series and like have any idea like what are those classes, what are these cars, like what am I watching. So really turning it into something that's digestible and understandable by like somebody who has just a tiny bit of car knowledge or enthusiasm has been a goal. Like we really want the classes to make sense, the rules to be easy to read, not a 250-page rule book or 800-page rule book. But yeah, just making it an event that everybody that shows up, whether they just tagged along with their significant, whether they bought a ticket 6 months ago because they were stoked about it, like they can all know what's happening on the racetrack and also maybe see a path to the racetrack. That's always a goal, is to make it feel like it's an accessible thing too. I don't see that as a trend though, which is unfortunate. Complaining about like not selling tickets, like they're not selling enough passes for their event. And why is that? Like, I don't know. Maybe you gotta think outside the box a little bit. We don't have that problem. Fortunately, we've basically sold out every event this year, which is great. Even in California, where it's a long way from our core audience. Like we had 100+ cars at our Willow Springs event, and everybody's afraid of Big Willow. Like it's a scary track. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's too many trends. I think a lot of people do things the way, as far as motorsports goes, they do things the way that they've always done them, and they wonder why it's not as good as it used to be. But there's a lot of options now. There's so many options in like track days and time trials, and you got a lot of options. So you got to keep trying to make it better for the participants. So.
You've made it very accessible in your business. It's been, and I think digestible and fun. I mean, that is like your point about being able to understand what's happening during a race and being engaged at all in what's happening. I mean, that's so critical. You had where the music festival performers were on. You had the on the screen there. You were playing the live feed with the announcers over the massive PA, right? So everybody was standing there and could understand like what was happening and could see the leaderboard and everything.
Yeah, and now those people know more about Time Attack than they did the day before, or know more about Touring Cup than they did the day before. Like even if they followed us for years, they'll hear Kyle talking about it or Greg talking about it, and more context, and then it just brings you into the app, into like the ecosystem of the event. Like you're part of the event when you know, like, oh, that's a K24 swap BRZ class that runs these tires. Like, cool. Now I have a little bit of context about what the rules are. But yeah, it's hard to pay attention to an event when it's just like, it looks like a track day with people circulating around. So you got to like try to get them the PA system. That sometimes can be hard. Sometimes it's easy. Like Road America, they've got a great PA system. They've got LCD or LED boards all around the track. But at some tracks we go to, like CMP is not as bad as it used to be, but like Gingerman, it's basically a field. Like, you know how many generators we rent for Gingerman? Our heavy equipment budget's like $80,000. It's insane. So,
middle of a field.
And that's our biggest events, literally in a field. They have like 7 permanent toilets. We have to bring in shower trailers and toilets and toilets and toilets and toilets and garbage trucks. And we build a city there for a week, So every event's different than the next, though. But.
Yeah, I mean the logistics, and you mentioned it with the live streaming. You guys for an amateur race league, we're talking insane amount of spend and quality of production for your live streaming.
Yeah, it's really designed to be broadcast level.
Yeah, it really is high quality.
Like, right? put it on CBS Sports, it fits in.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. When I'm not at the events, I'm usually on the YouTube channel watching the live stream, right? And like, this is as if I'm watching.
There's too many events to stream them all, but we work with a great team on live stream. Like our buddy who leads the live stream, he's like the former lead shooter of the Ken Block Gymkhana series. He's been in that world forever, but we met him in a parking lot in Michigan in like 2000. Because he liked Honda Civics and so did Chris and I. We were his like rally crew team for 10 years. And then he built a heavy lift drone like in, I don't know, 04, 05, like before drones were a thing, and just got into that world. And now he basically shoots for Ford and like builds a production for us. Like that's what he does for a living.
It's beautiful.
So it's all about people that you meet and like if there's anything, if there's any actual things that we've done right, it's, focus on racing rules and make good events, but also like when you meet anybody, you got to ask as many questions as you can, because you never know what they might bring to the table to like make your life better, to build your company. So ask a lot of questions, and if you meet crushers, try to hire them. Like,
Yeah.
because if you don't hire crushers, like they're gonna find some work to do. Maybe it'll be with your competition. So in any kind of business, like,
Right.
man, I'm kind of an idiot, but I surround myself with really smart people. Chris is really smart. He surrounds himself with really smart people, and the more really smart, really fun people to hang out with that you can put around you, the better your events are going to be, or the
Yeah.
better your company's going to be.
Yeah.
So
How has it been for you? So obviously taking over and helping lead your family's business, but then also as a leader of GridLife, what have been some of the, I guess, the challenges or things you've had to learn to, and now you have employees, right? With GridLife,
yep,
you're
yeah,
saying,
a
right?
lot of them. Yeah.
So what's it take? What are some leadership qualities or philosophies you have now that you're in those two roles, you know?
I'm not actually certain if I'm doing anything right with either company, but you gotta work a lot of hours. I probably worked 4,000 plus hours the last couple of years. But also, like, the hardest part is being able to focus on one thing or focus on the other, and really like compartmentalize like your brain, like your brain power, and not spread yourself too thin, even if it feels impossible. Take take half an hour and stop looking at emails. Just get your project done at one job or the other. But Also, delegation is I used to suck at it, and now I just ask the people that we pay to help me, because that's what
Right.
we have them there for.
Right.
So yeah, I've got to think big picture, and I've got people that are so much better at like sending contracts for me and like hiring people for the events, because a lot of events will swell up to like 50 to 120 people, as far as like paid people at events. So
Sure.
yeah, it's you can't do it all yourself. You gotta find good people, and you gotta let them go. So, and that sometimes can be tough, especially with this business started out as like a bit of a passion project. So like the inherent like the instinct is to hold it close and like
Hmm.
try to do as much of as you can. But if you and it's been this has definitely been a problem for us, is to like let things go and like let the people that we know are better at it than us do it. So
Yeah.
in a lot of respects, but sometimes you gotta let your baby run.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
versus sit in the high chair, you
That's
gotta
right.
put them down and
Yeah.
yeah, let them run. So
As fathers of children, you and I both, the first child, you're like, okay, everything, I got to be careful of this. And then by the
I gotta
third,
put Nerf everywhere.
yeah, by the third
Yeah,
one, I'm just like, all right, you fell, like, get up, like, you're
it's
okay.
fine. You
Yeah.
didn't die. You didn't
Yeah.
die.
Right. It's going to be okay.
Yep.
Like, to delegate out,
Yep.
and especially if you take time to find the right people. And then, like you said, you find a crusher, or you found somebody who's going to really make it be a game changer for you. And then obviously
Right.
firing fast if it's somebody who's really not working, it's working
Right.
against you. You got to get them out quick, right?
It's it's also tough because a lot of the people that work with us are our friends, and we brought them in because we're like, man, I really like being around that person.
Yeah.
So you struggle with the relationship when it's like boss, not boss, versus like, hey, bud, like,
Yeah.
so just turning it into like a real company versus like 5 years ago, it was like, hey, you guys want to help Tuesday? Like, uh, and we're leaving on Thursday.
Yeah.
So, it's yeah, turning it into a company that is professional and runs an event that's way buttoned up before we even go there. It's been a building processes and like finding
Yeah.
the right people. It's been a big growth journey. So,
What's the annual budget for the whole year for all the events you do?
um, I mean, several of the individual events are, around 1.1 to, $1.3 million for some of these individual events, and they might make that like their break even sometimes is the goal.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think we're moving about 5 million through the company a year now. A lot of them are smaller events, a lot of them are big events. So
Yeah.
5, 6 million, somewhere in that range. So
Yeah. You're making it happen.
But,
spreading the good word of
just
racing.
Trying to get the bills paid.
Exactly. What are some of their most like favorite moments as you've been building the company and at events, or funny things that have happened as you've been growing together?
We did a lot of dumb stuff early on. Like the first Road Atlanta event, we were so unsafe on golf carts. Like we were there to run the event, and we were so unsafe in the middle of the night on golf carts. Um, like some of the funny moments in my head, like I don't even want to talk about some of them because it's like embarrassing that we did those things. Um, my favorite moments recently is last year. I was the first year in literally 10 years of hosting events that I didn't go to one of our events. And up until that point, I was the only person that had gone to every GridLife event because I had to. Like,
Yeah.
I had to. I didn't have people. I didn't have people to help. I didn't have somebody that was capable of doing the drivers' meeting or confident to do it. I like I said earlier, I was really holding it close to the chest,
Sure.
and I lifted a lot of bins myself. I still do, but and this year we threw a really big pre Midwest Festival event. The last couple of years we've hosted it called the Rev Up, kind of like the Roar before the 24 for IMSA.
Yep.
It's like we do a 2-day weekend at Gingerman 2 weeks before our big event. It's a full points round for time attack, but a lot of people use it to test and tune. And I didn't go. It was great. It was over my birthday, and I was just really proud of my team, like the team that you built, like the team that when you see a crusher, you say, "Hey, can you help me?" And pretty soon they're your employee, and they're better than me. They're better than I ever was at it. So, yeah, probably the happiest moment was after Midwest Festival when I was basically like watching all of the people in the motorsports side and like, hey, do we need water here? Do we need something? Like I was kind of the janitor and my team was doing it, which was great. So I got to focus a little bit more on like rules parity at the event. Like I'm putting data boxes in cars and pulling them out and looking at data and stuff. But like the event was happening. It was our biggest event that we've ever done. And it was flowing because our team is dialed. So
that's really cool.
And the same thing with the festival teams and all the people that we brought in for the event. I mean, we had people there the Sunday before, like striping the grass and laying out, string and poles for campsites, and everybody just meshed well, crushed it. Great event. One of the best events we've ever done.
I love that. I have a have a funny story. I think I told you this, but when we were hosting the party in the pits after the after
Road Atlanta,
after the music festival let out, everyone was coming down, having a good time, and then people were like ramping pit bikes off of the race ramps to get the cars and the trailers. And then I don't know if it was you guys, probably should have been, or a police officer who was like, hey, like you guys can't be doing donuts and jumping pit bikes off of race ramps. They're like, okay, fine. So then, because everyone wanted to race, they started doing foot races, like literally just running from point to point. I'm like, you guys just...
I remember vividly.
We're doing foot racing right now.
Seeing John Naderi from Hoonigan, and he's like in his mid 40s at the time, and he wanted to sprint race anybody, like everybody, foot race with Nads.
Just wants to race. Everyone wants to race. I love it.
One of the craziest moments that I've ever, I'll vividly remember this forever. The Ludacris concert. We had Ludacris at Road Atlanta, and then Road Atlanta, where we had the concert, it was in the elevated area up by the bridge.
Yes.
And then the paddock is down lower. So I was walking back down into the paddock, and it was the night of I think it was the Mayweather Conor McGregor fight, maybe. A bunch of people had bootlegged that fight, and it was starting right at the end of the concert. And they had projectors up on trailers. There was tiki torches everywhere, and it looked just like that crazy entrance to the Race Wars scene in the first Fast and Furious. And I was so overwhelmed with pure panic, but also it was so cool. Oh my gosh, this is really happening. So, that was a weird feeling, is walking down into the most hyped up paddock ever after Luda played. It was a bizarre night, totally bizarre night.
The culture and the community at the events feel very, very organic. How do you guys foster such a strong sense of that community and the culture? Because that is truly, I was talking about this earlier with somebody else, when people have a brand or a product, right? Even if it's a product or a service, and then they develop a community around that, brand or
Right.
product. It just, the strength of that is so powerful. And I feel like you guys have an immense culture and community tied
We
to
think a
this.
lot about it. And I don't really know what the secret sauce is. I do know that like if we see somebody being a total D-bag, like we generally they don't last very long in the paddock because like the people around them kind of just like push them away a little bit. People that don't fit in, and they probably won't fit in many places. Because
Right.
if you're semi nice and ask 3 questions, all of a sudden you have a best friend at our events, you know.
Right. Right.
But I do think maybe it comes from like our grid staff and myself will try to be friends with everybody. We like really try to do that, and it's
Yeah.
part of our team meetings. Is like, hey, remember, uh, it's a lot of work for people to come to these events. This is a lot of money, a lot of work, a lot of investment. We got to be as nice as we can.
Yeah.
We got to and when something's bad, let's handle it as chill as possible. When something goes wrong, if somebody's being a jerk, whatever, I think a lot of it comes from just generally, hey, let's treat everybody else like the way we want to be treated. And I think that's organic. Like and the
Yeah.
right people have found us.
Yeah.
So big picture, like most of the clicks at our events, like if you walk up to any of them and like say hello, like you'll be welcomed back immediately. You know, the
Yeah.
Corvette gang,
Yeah.
like they're only friends because they all have Corvettes, and now they're like literally best friends. Like
Yeah.
the same thing with like the BRZ gang, or anybody with a K24 is best friends with anybody with a K24 engine. You know, because they all talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even in our drivers meetings, I always ask people to, if you're having a problem with somebody, like talk with them. And if you don't want to talk with them, talk with us and we'll sort it out. Like,
Right.
let's not let these tensions stay high.
Right.
So, yeah.
And that's been my experience, right? You could walk over to any group of people, you don't even know them, and you're like, "Hey, what's up?" They're like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like just you immediately have this bond at those events. And the staff, you know, that is something that I always notice. Your staff and your volunteers, I don't know, I think there's a few of them mixed in, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's never a situation that I've encountered where there's been an escalation because of attitude, right?
There have been a few. There's always a few,
But
yeah,
but like from what I've seen, right? Even in a situation where there was an escalation of something happening, the staff weren't the ones
right.
escalating it. It was they were always, hey, like let's just solve this and figure it out sort of way. And
Yeah.
that
We're at a racetrack having fun. Like it's usually not the
right,
end of the world.
right,
So,
yeah,
right.
exactly. It's just a really good community. So what do you
Yeah.
see?
There's no like secret sauce there, but it's always it's an effort. It's for until the end of time. It'll be an effort to like
Yeah,
best weekend ever.
a lot
The
of
goal is best weekend ever.
intentionality.
So,
That's awesome.
yep.
What do you see for the future of the organization? Like, and how are you preparing for that as you sort of go through the next few years?
It's kind of hard to say. It does feel like, you know, regardless of what economic things happen in the next 5 years or whatever, our core audience, like they don't really care about their retirement that much. So maybe we'll always have an audience. I'm not sure. But big picture, we would love to probably kind of be where we're at with only a few more support events for some of the big events. We've really finally, it literally took 10 years to build the schedule that like feels good.
Yeah.
Last year we had, there was 1 month where we were at like every 7 days or 6 days we were at a racetrack. We had back to back to back events. I think in 5 weeks we were at 4 events, and 3 of them were festivals. Like it was the month from hell. One of them we were a sports series for NASCAR at Road America.
Whoa.
Like it was a crazy month, a crazy 5-6 weeks. We really wanted to get away from some of that, and it's probably one of the things that like made me happiest was when racetracks were like, hey, we'll move things around. We really want to have one of your events. We'll move things around if we can. And so like these are the weekends we can do it. We've always wanted to go there, or we always wanted to build and invest into an event at your facility. Here's what we can do. And it works now. So because tracks see value in having the younger demographic of drivers and spectators, which is good. So yeah, we really want to keep building off of what it is, like making the schedule. I mean, and just making it more stable and long term. Like, every October we do this, every July we do that. So yeah, stability and letting people expect what we're gonna show them for our calendar as early as we can. So.
Sure. Yeah. Speaking of the younger audience, that's another thing that I always, I noticed and took note as I got more into the racing culture and was going to different events and different organizations events. You always found that a lot of the people there in attendance and the volunteers were retired or, more seasoned
Right.
or, they're further out,
It's a difficult hobby to
they're
do.
further
Yeah, it's
along in
tough.
life,
So,
right? They have the sort
right.
of free cash flow to do it. And I think, your events obviously draw a very young crowd, like a very diverse crowd. I mean, not everyone's young, but it is a very
Sure.
diverse, but a lot more accessible to those who, aren't just not as seasoned and, don't have like unlimited amount of money to throw at things. Um,
Sure.
and I was curious of what you're seeing as you're having these conversations with motorsports organizations and, racetracks and eh, are they seeing a shift in the sort of the attendance base and the driver base?
I think it depends on the type of event, but I do think that there's probably a generation, maybe a 5 or 8 year gap of people that like just don't really care about cars. Like, and I maybe like late 20s, early 30s, and I think Instagram and YouTube really has brought a lot of people back into it.
Mm,
People faded away in early social media and they got into other stuff. And then really car culture has kind of exploded in the past 5, 8 years.
yeah,
So I think it's probably in a pretty good spot. I don't think it's going to be an equestrian style hobby where it's like, oh, I have to go visit my racetrack or my race car at the racetrack and pay someone to maintain it. I don't think it's going to get there. I think it's going to be a thing for quite a while. I don't really know
yeah.
long term, but
So listen, you've obviously been able to grow a nice organization. You have another business you're running. You have a family. What's some advice you would give somebody else like getting started like you did a decade ago, right? They have an idea. They're interested in doing something unique.
yeah,
Maybe it's in motorsports, maybe it's not, but in general,
yeah.
uh, what would you tell that person?
It, I almost don't know because I feel like I did everything wrong, and I don't quite know what I did right. Aside from
Doing it, but you did it.
if you're really yeah, if you're really passionate about something, I'm still pretty into cars, but I was so into cars. I mean, it was all I thought about. It was like a big part of the reason I woke up to go make money doing something. Was because I wanted to go faster and build a car and have fun with my friends, like go cruise at the Dairy Queen, stuff like that. But if you're really into something, I think it can be a two-edged sword to like work in the industry of your passion. Um, but it's also like I'm so proud of what we've built with all of our friends. Like this thing that we've built with our friends. Like I don't feel like I want to flaunt it in somebody's face, but I'm like so proud of just going to get to hang out with all these people that are so loyal to our company.
Yeah.
Like I'm in all these group chats of like the GLTC chat, the Sunday Cup chat, the Club TR chat, like of all of our classes. And they're just it's like a family reunion every time. One that you want to go to though.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
but I think if you're really passionate about something, you probably should try it. And sometimes there's not school to teach you how to do things. Sometimes you got to just dive in and get dirty, and maybe you got to drive a trailer across the country all by yourself, and whatever you got to do to get there. Like,
Right.
maybe you should do it. Like take some risk, especially if you're young. Like especially if you can, and you think there's I think there is something about like a progressive realization of a worthwhile goal. Like if you think you're making progress towards a goal that is good, I don't think you should stop. So
Yeah. No, I love that. You gotta stick your head out there and run after something. And
and
like,
often it doesn't work for a long time.
yeah,
But if you think you got a good goal, keep working towards it.
yeah,
Sometimes it'll take 10 years. It took me 15 years or 18 years to get the family business out of a mountain of debt. Like we're talking for a small business, it was like a crushing amount of debt. And the day that it was all gone, because literally I worked a lot of it off with my lower back and climbing ladders and like, it's a good day. And now like I've set my parents up to have like a retirement versus like they threw it all away in 08, 07, trying to run from the recession, like
Yeah.
trying to support things and keep their companies going. And like the worthwhile goal there was like, all right, I got to see it through to like get my parents a retirement that is viable, and whether my dad keeps working a little bit here and there or not, like the goal was to like get them to a good spot. And in that like 15-year hell of getting there, I feel like I learned a lot about like hard work, but also the value of the people around you. So
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I love I love what you're saying here because it, it's like, how are you supposed to know unless you do it? And if you don't do it, you're not going to learn. And the whole process is the failures along the way that are really developmental. That's really where all the
yeah,
growth is anyway, right? So,
life is the sum of your experiences, and a lot of them are uh, utter failures,
yeah.
especially monetarily.
Yeah.
But like some of the things that some of the best events that we've had, like the things that have changed um, what we do now versus what we did then, they were difficult struggles, but it also made us grow. It made us like
Yeah.
not rest on our laurels, like, um, and also like don't ignore advice. Like you might like if you don't take advice or and at least think about it, even from people that you think are idiots. Like some of the best advice and best input I've had are from people that I'd rather not talk to because they're kind of annoying. They're always needy, but like they might have a good idea.
Sure.
And if that person has a good idea that you can't take, that's a total loss. So like talk to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the best, a lot of I think maybe my only skill is that I can listen to people and I can digest what they tell me and maybe distill it into something good. That's actually my only skill. I'm not sure.
Only skill.
Yeah, it might be the only thing I have going for
That
me
in
in the
drivers
motorsports
meetings.
world is
Okay.
is is that I'm not. I don't think I know everything. I actually think that everybody else is probably smarter than me, and I have to keep fooling them.
So, speaking of that, so that's a great sort of segue. Have you had any mentors? I mean, you did mention surround yourself with smart people. And what's been the
Sure.
value of people mentorship around you, or who have you sort of looked up to in life?
So we've as far as motorsports goes, I came up through the SCCA, the Sports Car Club of America, and I got to know several older dudes there, and just picking brains and having conversations with these people that I really looked up to. Early on in our Road Atlanta rental events days, like in 2016, he used to work there. This guy Gary, who was the operations manager for that racetrack. But what he had done in the past, he spent his life in the entire planet doing motorsports things and very interesting stuff and working with the craziest people, and the stories he's got to tell are insane. But he's seen so many things. So if you got a question, call Gary and talk to Gary for an hour.
Yeah.
If and literally he works in F1 right now. He's got my race control, my timing people. He's gotten them jobs in IMSA and F1 now, and like he's all over the place. So we're sharing people with all these like the biggest sanctioning bodies in the world. Like, and
Yeah.
they work our events and they work their events. So that's bringing the quality of the on track production and like the safety things. It's brought that all up. And then just in life, like the stuff that like my dad saw, he might have made a lot of dumb decisions, but also like some of the best advice I've ever got is from him. Just listen to other people, and if you see somebody with something that you think is a solid life, ask him how he got there. Hey, that person's got nice kids. Ask him like how'd you raise your kids?
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
don't think you know anything,
Yeah.
and if you see somebody who might know more, don't hesitate to ask. So
I love that. What's been your favorite vehicle to own? But what's been your favorite vehicle to actually put on the track?
I haven't actually tracked that many things because I've been married to a 1990 Honda Civic for 23 years, and it's my favorite material possession. It's my favorite object in the world. I would not sell it. If I do crash it, I have a backup chassis in my buddy's attic of his barn. It's my favorite thing in the
They
world.
will never die.
I've driven. It probably won't. I mean, the parts are getting hard to find, but I've got a whole back storage room in my basement, which is a level under the ground for people that are not in lands with basements. I've got a whole back area full of spare parts because the transmissions are hard to find and all that. It's my baby. It's the car that I want to drive, and it's pretty fast. So it's actually built to our Touring Cup specs. So about 12.5 to 1 power to weight.
Oh yeah.
And yep. So it's a good time. Not too fast.
You can wheel that pretty quick around the track.
Yeah, they go pretty fast. They really, GLTC is as fast as it is because it's attracted really fast drivers, and they push themselves so much because of the people that are around them.
Yeah.
Everybody who comes from other amateur sanctioning bodies just accuses us of cheating because we go so much faster on lesser tires. But like we have a chassis dyno at the event. We have scales. Like we know what they make. But yeah, that's my car though. I've also got a dumb little Honda Fit that is a really great cheap daily driver. But probably the most useful vehicle of all time would be a tie between my RV, which I put a lot of miles and a lot of nights in that thing every year, which is an old Cummins powered RV, or my Cummins swapped 05 F350 work truck, which is a tank of a truck.
Yeah.
So, solid vehicle.
Battle tested.
Literally like a tank. So
what you guys used to do like a really interesting, was it Chop the Top event or something? Or what are some of the weird events you guys have or doing?
So that's actually not a GridLife event. That's not a GridLife. The Chop Top Challenge isn't a GridLife event, but like kind of GridLife came up with it. And our friends just ran with it. You buy any vehicle that isn't a convertible, and you have to cut the windshield and the rest of the roof off completely. And then you do a road rally with, you find things along the way to get points, and that's how you win. And they party at night and meet up all over the place. It happens multiple times a year all across the country.
Yeah, and
it's kind of like this.
Okay, it's happening more than
it still
once.
goes. It still goes. Yeah. I think they do 2 or 3 a year right now. I think it's choptopchallenge.com, which is it's cool. The most illegal underground road rally maybe ever.
I remember when you told me about it. It was getting It was starting in the middle of winter, and you didn't have a roof on your car.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, they start like in March in Chicago, and like drive to Key West or drive to Austin, Texas, and you gotta like find all the landmarks along the way or decode. It's managed by a bunch of different people, or you like solve riddles and things like it's bizarre. Yeah. But and yes, some of the kickoff parties were pretty legendary. One kickoff party in Chicago in March, they rented a warehouse, which is like one of those workspaces, you like rent a stall and you keep your tools there and stuff.
Yeah.
They rented it out for a party. There was a punk rock band. It was so loud. And I put 3 roll cages in cars that night. I just literally welded them in, not great ones, but like brought a bender, brought my welder. Yeah, made quote unquote roll cages. One of them was a limo, which the roll cage was needed because it was starting to bend in the middle. So we put 2 roll cages, one front, one back, and then we bridged it with a bar like at like chin level if you're sitting in the car, so that the thing didn't crack in half. It's like a 1986 Cadillac limo. And that thing has made more chop top runs than I think any other car.
Wow.
We lit it on fire pretty good that night, caging it too.
I'm sure you did.
A lot of sparks.
Well, man, it's been awesome catching up and having you on the show. I appreciate you sharing about the community and the culture. One of the reasons I want to on here because you've established something that is so unique. Not just, certainly unique in the scope of all businesses and all events, but also
it's a weird, dumb business,
but very unique in and of this specific niche of motorsports. And so I appreciate you sharing the story a bit with us and coming on today.
Yeah, man. Don't ever think that you know everything. Ask everybody who's smart and around you. Just ask them all the questions.
I love it. Thanks, brother.
Cool. Yeah, man.
Thanks.